Indian mythology, there is the story of Mahishasura, that is an asura, a demon king. So we know that there are the devas and the asuras. The king of the devas is Indra, and on the other hand, we have the asuras who are constantly fighting with the devas because they want to conquer the world of the gods. So Mahishasura was an evil demon who meditated for long, and he asked Brahma for the boon of immortality. He asks Brahma that he may live forever, and here Brahma gives him the answer that immortality cannot be granted to anyone, but he may choose the way in which he is to die. So this demon or asura thinks that he is very clever, and he asks that he may not be killed by a man or a beast. So here he does not think of the possibility of a woman killing him. It is impossible because he is so strong, he is able to conquer any mighty demon or god. So he is sure that only a man or a beast would be able to kill him. So we see that in the story that Mahishasura conquers the nether world, he conquers the earth, and then the third he goes to the world of the gods, and he conquers the heavens too. It is at that time that Devendra, Indra, asks Brahma to save the world of the gods, to get rid of Mahishasura. And we see in the story that Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, the destroyer, the preserver, and the all three of them, the Trinity, join together to form Durga, Devi Durga, who comes down, and it is she who conquers and kills Mahishasura. So, in all the mythologies or religions, we see that immortality there is a quest after immortality. There is always some character who wants to be immortal, but always the gods find a loophole. There'll be some way that that person or that demon or whoever it is would be killed. So in this case, we see how a woman comes to kill Mahishasura. This Devi, who has the powers of these three gods, finishes off the life of Mahishasura. There is another story of Andaga, again a very evil asura or demon. He is a demon, but he is born of gods, and that is something he does not know. And again, this demon too asks a boon to be immortal. And Brahma allows him the boon, but says that you need to choose your form of death, but you may choose wisely. And it is said that Andaga thought so hard that he wanted to choose something that would never happen. He then asks a boon, saying that only if I lust after my own mother will I die. Only such a situation can cause my death. So unknowingly, later on, he sees Devi Parvati, the consort of Shiva, and he lusts for her, not knowing that it is she who has given birth to him. She is his mother in the sense that it is a drop of sweat from her hands that has given birth to him. And in that situation, we see that the god Shiva throws his trident and kills him. Then if you take Greek mythology, there is the very popular story which everybody knows of Sisyphus. Sisyphus tries to fool the god of death. He goes to the god of death and he says that his wife has not performed his funeral properly, so he wants to go back to earth. This was his ploy to get away from Hades so that he does not have to, remain in the land of the dead. But then he is cursed. He is cursed that he has to roll a huge boulder up, all the way up a hill, and he has to put it down. And then he has to do the same process again and again. So all these mythological stories are trying to tell us that immortality cannot happen. We are born in this world and we have to die. Every single creature, every living organism has to die. So now today we have a poem by John Donne, one of the most prominent, most celebrated metaphysical poet. John Donne was a soldier, a poet, a cleric, and he was so well known during his period. He has given great sermons in the St. Paul Cathedral, for which thousands from all over the country would come in order to listen to him. So let's see the poem. Death, be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. For those whom thou thinkest thou dost overthrow, die not, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. So this poem, from the very beginning, we can see that there is a irony, there is paradox. This poem can fit into several categories. That is what we need to remember. It is a sonnet because it has 14 lines. It is written in iambic pentameter, and it is a very organized structure of lines. We have first an octave, then there is a quatrain, and then there is a couplet. So it is a well organized rhyme scheme. It is also an elegy because it starts about death. Elegy is also a dirge or a lament for death, a funeral song. So it comes under elegy also. It also comes under apostrophe because it starts and ends in an apostrophe as if it is a conversation to an abstract concept, that is death. So it is here we see the poetic device that is used right in the beginning is personification. Here death is personified. The poet is addressing death, he is talking to death. It is, most importantly, it is a metaphysical poem because the metaphysical concepts are used. Metaphysical poetry has very incongruous conceits, very extraordinary imagery, and let's see. So the poet starts by telling death, most people, many have called you mighty and dreadful. You are supposed to be so strong, so scary, so, fear invoking. And but thou art not so. But it is my opinion that you are not scary, you are not dreadful. He is mocking death. At first, he tells death that he thinks that the world may call death something dreadful, but he himself is not scared of death. And for those whom thou thinkest thou dost overthrow, you may overthrow kings, you may overthrow and kill entire dynasties and creatures and creations in all order. Die not. You may think that you are killing them, but they are not dying. They don't die. You have no power. Nor yet canst thou kill me. Now he is almost challenging death and saying, you cannot kill me. From rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be, much pleasure then from thee, much more must flow. The poet then compares death to sleep. He says that rest and sleep are very similar to you. They are pictures of you. So when you are resting, you are very still. When you are sleeping, you are very still. So this aspect of stillness, which is very similar to death. Death means utter stillness. There is no longer any breath or movement in the body. But the poet says even rest and sleep are very similar to you, death. So he says, they are your pictures and they give us so much pleasure. We are so rested and relaxed when we sleep. So he says, how much more pleasure will you give us, death? Death, you cannot give us pain. You may think you will inflict pain, but you are actually going to give us a lot of pleasure. Much pleasure then from thee, much more must flow. And soonest our best men with thee do go, rust of their bones and souls delivery. So the best of our men, the wisest, the most intelligent, the strongest, the bravest, must all die one day. Their bones alone remain and their soul is delivered. And here is the paradox. John Donne tells us that the soul cannot be killed. The soul leaves to the heavenly abode, leaves the body, the physical body. Thou art slave to fate, chance, kings, and desperate men. Now he's treating death like a braggart, a boastful person, a boastful warrior. He says, you may think that you are causing this death, but actually you are a slave. You are a slave to a great king. When a king commands that somebody should be killed or the army should go and defeat another country, death is becoming a slave to this king. Death is having to run around at the command of this great king or a warrior who, with one plunge of sword or stab, will kill someone else. There too, death is working as a servant for this warrior. And desperate men, I think the word desperate men would definitely mean those people who are so desperate that they are ready to take their own lives, people who commit suicide. So there too, death becomes their slave. Death is not choosing when they should die, but rather they are taking it into their own hands when they will leave this earth. And death with poison, war, and sickness dwell. And you use poison and war and sickness. These are the methods in which death inflicts pain and kills people and takes away life from their physical body. And poppy or charms can make us sleep as well. Here the poet says that even poppy, that is that intoxicating flower, that is opium, or any other drug can also cause us to be drugged and sleep away. It can make us sleep just as well as you can. So now he is comparing death to any drug that would induce sleep, and here the word opium is used, poppy, or charms, and there is so many magical incantations that can cause somebody to doze off. And better than thy stroke, why swell'st thou then? Here he is asking death, why are you swelling with pride? Why are you so boastful? The poppy, the opium, or any drug that one would take, they're better than you. They induce a better sleep than you, a coma better than what you would do. And you are still boasting. What do you think of yourself? One short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die. So now the poet comes to the last lines where he says, death is merely a short sleep, after which we will wake up eternally. Our souls will go heavenward, or wherever that soul is bound to go. And death, he ends the poem with a very important line, death, thou shalt die. It is you who will die. This is a very complex poem, a poem in which there is a ton of meaning. No matter how much you read, you're going to see more and more. So, one of the ideas that we feel here is, death, thou shalt die. This is a paradox, a very ingenious paradox. How is it possible that death can die? So, here we see that Donne says that when death inflicts pain and a person's life is taken away from his body, he wakes up eternally, which means that his foe is then dying. Who is dying here? It is death who is failing or dying. Death is failing to claim that life, and that is what is causing death to die. So here we see that this abstract concept of death is personified, and we see another device used as metaphor, because death is compared to sleep or rest. So there is a metaphor. There is the imagery of death coming in like a warrior, a mighty warrior with a sword, an evil king in the form of poisons and wheels. Then we also see that death is there is an illusion to death as the grim reaper. We see the god, Greek god Thanatos is the god of death. And this illusion is also coming because Thanatos has a brother, and the name of that brother is Hypnos or sleep. So, sleep and death, these two concepts are also taken. Let us look at the rhyme scheme. We have ABBA, ABBA, that is for the octave, the first 8 lines. Then we have CDDC for the quatrain, the 4 lines. And the last 2 lines, the couplet, will be EE. The ancient pronunciation of eternally was eternally and die. So that is EE. So the structure of the poem is such that it is a sonnet. It belongs to his holy sonnets. Donne's holy sonnets are as celebrated as his love poems. Here we see the very important message of Christianity is brought forth. John Donne was a metaphysical poet. He was born in a Catholic family and later became a Protestant. He became one of the greatest preachers of his period, and his sonnets were read in the St. Paul Cathedral. Here, there is a reference to the Bible, where in Corinthians it is said that the last enemy to be abolished, the last enemy to be killed will be death. This refers to the second coming of Christ. When Christ comes back, we know that according to Christianity, Christ is the only person to be resurrected from death, brought back from death, and he is sinless. So it is said that during his second coming, when all the world will be conquered, death itself will be subjugated or killed. So that idea is also brought in. So the biblical statement, death, thou shalt die, thou shalt be conquered by Christ. So that meaning is also brought in here. Then we see that Donne's metaphysical poetry, that is, metaphysical poetry deals with very ingenious conceits and goes beyond the realm of physical. There is a lot of philosophy here, the idea of life and death, the binary opposite of life and death also. Donne's poetry is also known for a sensuous imagery. Even in this poem, where it deals with death, we see that there is a sensuous imagery. If you take the word stroke, better than thy stroke, why swell'st thou then? The word stroke, the English meaning there is to kill or hit with one stab, to kill someone, that is a stroke. And there is also the other word stroke, which means caress somebody with love. And here, by death is also in a way compared to a Casanova, a lover who is thinking or boasting that all his conquests, all the women whom he has met, they are dying for his presence, that these women have, they have given up their life to be in love with him. To such a Casanova, the poet says, why do you boast? Do not give yourself undue importance. Nobody is waiting for your caress. You have not subdued, you have not conquered all these women. You yourself are being made a joke of. They too have had the pleasure from you and they do not care about you. So this sensuous imagery is also brought in along with the idea of death. Restful, that after a rest, the person wakes up eternally. So here we see that life is portrayed as very strong and death has no importance. Another idea we can see here is quite often in life, when our body is ridden with pain, with affliction, with disease, death can come as a merciful messenger. So Donne tells us that death need not be a punishment, as most people think. Death can be a reward, death can be a boon, and one may happily move on into that realm of heaven or afterlife. Then again, another idea which we can take, we can also think, that is of course not in a religious sense, if we think of it as merely physics, a physical state of matter, are we not as humans changing from one state into another? From the life form, we are becoming Shakespeare's food for worms. When we are buried, we are becoming ashes that are once again going into the earth. And that again replenishes plants that grow from the soil and fruits that grow on these plants. So the life cycle, even if you do not take it in a religious sense, then too we see that life is conquering death. So most people, the majority of people would be scared of death. It is terrifying. It is an idea that we would all try to push away from our thoughts as much as we can. But Donne here, he has written this in his sick bed when he was very, very sick and nearing death. In such a situation, he has written this poem to show that he is not afraid of death. Another influence in his life was his patron, Lucy Edgerton, the wife of wife of an earl, who she was a patron for many poets, and she had written a poem about the idea of conquering death. It is from here that this philosophical idea came into Donne's mind, and he was very much influenced by this philosophy that he wrote this poem, which is renowned all over the world. Some of the other very important metaphysical poets are Andrew Marvell, George Herbert, and definitely the founder of the metaphysical poetry is John Donne. Death, Be Not Proud by John Donne. Death, be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. For those whom thou thinkest thou dost overthrow, die not, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. From rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be, much pleasure then from thee, much more must flow. And soonest our best men with thee do go. Rest of their bones and soul's delivery, thou art slave to fate, chance, kings, and desperate men, and dost with poison, war, and sickness dwell, and poppy or charms can make us sleep as well. And better than thy stroke, why swell'st thou then? One short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die.